Brittany Pilkington was born on January 27 in 1992. Brittany lived with her mother, Laurie Cummins, and her stepfather Joseph Pilkington. However, the two were never actually married but lived together and were in a relationship. Brittany's biological father and her mother divorced when she was young. Joseph began dating her mother when she was only 9 years old, and has been a father figure until the two started having a sexual relationship. In 2009, when Brittany was only 15, she became pregnant with her stepfather's baby, and gave birth in 2010 to a son she named Gavin. Shortly after the birth of their son, in 2010, the two married and moved out of the family home. Brittany was 20 years younger than Joseph. The couple lived in Bellefontaine, Ohio. Brittany became pregnant again and gave birth to a daughter in August of 2011. She named her Haley. Brittany became pregnant again and gave birth to another son, Neil. He was born in April of 2014. On July of 2014, Joseph came home from work and noticed their son Neil was sleeping in an odd position. When he touched the baby, he was cold and already dead. His death was ruled unexplained by the medical examiner. Less than a year later, Joseph came home from work to find his 4-year-old son Gavin dead in his bed. Joseph decided to take their daughter Haley, the only surviving child, in for testing. He felt there was something genetic causing his children to die in their cribs suddenly. Doctors couldn't find any genetic abnormalities with Haley. In May of 2015, Brittany gave birth to another son, Noah. When Noah was 3 months old, Child Services made the decision to take both Noah and Haley out of the home due to suspicions that the other children may have fallen victim to foul play. The children were placed in foster care. Authorities became involved, and investigated the deaths, but there was no evidence that she actually harmed the children. In August of 2015, a judge ordered that the children be returned to Brittany and their father, Joseph. Just a week later, Noah was found dead in his bed. Police began an investigation into the deaths. During a lengthy interview, Brittany at first claimed she rolled over on the first baby, Neil, in bed. She said the stress from his death caused her to put their 4-year-old son, Gavin, to bed, cover him with a blanket, then put pressure on his nose until he stopped breathing. She said she intentionally put Noah in bed on his stomach, covered him with blanket and left him in a position that would cause him to smother to death. She eventually admitted to killing all 3 children intentionally. She claimed she was jealous of the attention her husband was giving her sons. She said she murdered them in a jealous rage. She also said she didn't want her sons to grow up and be abusive like the men who abused her when she was a child. Over a 13-month time period, Brittany smothered her 3 sons with a blanket. Brittany Pilkington's bond was set at $1 million. Prosecutors stated she was suicidal. She was placed on suicide watch at the Logan County Jail. Pilkington's lawyers had extensive physical and mental evaluations. The 2 physicians, Dr. Jeffrey Madden, a neuropsychologist who previously taught at the Ohio University College of Medicine, and Dr. Howard Fradkin, a psychologist who specializes in sexual trauma. The 2 evaluated Pilkington, and said she suffered from trauma and lead poisoning, as a child that resulted in brain damage. Dr. Madden told the court that the locus of her injury appears to be primarily in cognitive and behavioral symptoms consistent with injury to the right hemisphere, he said. This may also be a factor in what at times appears to be a lack of emotional responsiveness, but is in fact only the lack of expression. They also determined she had a borderline low IQ of 78. They claimed she did not have the ability to withstand the coercive interrogation that was given to her by the police. Her lawyers filed affidavits with the court to have her confession thrown out. They claimed it was after the death of her 3rd son, and that her rights were violated in the interview, and she didn't understand the context of her discussion with police. During a hearing, Logan County Common Pleas Judge Mark O'Connor reviewed over 4 hours of the interview with Pilkington. The recordings showed a young woman crying, and admitting to smothering all 3 of her sons. She said she covered their faces with blankets and put pressure on them until they were dead. Judge O'Connor weighed whether Pilkington knowingly waived her right to have her lawyer present. Evidence proved she signed 2 separate forms admitting she understood and waived her rights. Judge O'Connor also weighed if police used coercion. The judge said, "This is due to their length, the fact that 5 officers over the course of time participated in the interrogation, or the polygraph examination, that the interrogation and most damning admissions were made at the end of this lengthy interrogation, and after the defendant was yelled at by one officer with the chief of police conducting the confrontational examination." He also weighed whether this impaired Pilkington's capacity to give a voluntary statement. Other factors included Pilkington's mental state, her past criminal history, length of interrogation, and if she was deprived of anything, mistreated in any way, or threatened. Judge O'Connor concluded that there was no evidence that Pilkington had any mental problems. He said, "The court finds that the statements made to the police on August 18 in 2015 were voluntary." He denied the motion and continued by saying, "She was not overborne, nor was her capacity for self-discrimination critically impaired during the conduct of these interviews." Brittany was due to stand trial in 2020, but in November of 2019 she pled guilty to the murders.
You have had a chance to go over the petition with your attorneys?
Yes, I have.
And you signed it here voluntarily, is that correct?
Yes.
And you are a citizen of the United States?
Yes, I am.
Other than the plea agreement, has anybody promised you anything to get you to enter this plea?
No.
Has anybody threatened you in any way?
No.
It's been a long time that you've been in jail and you've had these attorneys for 4 years. Are you satisfied with the advice that they have given you?
Yes, I am.
You have confidence in them?
Yes.
Today, are you in good health mentally and physically?
Yes, I am.
Are you now under the influence of drugs or alcohol?
No, no.
What is your age?
27.
And how much education did you complete?
High school diploma.
And you read and write well, is that correct?
Yes.
The next thing we're going to do is discuss the nature of the charges, and we'll take these one by one and ask the prosecutor to read into the record count 1.
Count 1 reads, on or about the 22nd day of July, 2014, the County of Logan aforesaid, the Belgian Brittany Pilkington did cause the death of Niall Mason Pilkington, date of birth April 11, 2014. And such death was the proximate result of Brittany Pilkington committing or attempting to commit the felony offense of child endangering in violation of Revised Code 2919.22. To wit, no person who is the parent of a child under 18 years of age shall create a substantial risk to the health or safety of the child by recklessly violating a duty of care, protection, or support, and the violation resulted in serious physical harm to the child involved. The violation of Ohio Revised Codes 2903.04a and 2903.04c, involuntary manslaughter, a felony of the first degree.
That charge is under section 2903.04, which provides that no person shall cause the death of another or the unlawful termination of another's pregnancy as an approximate result of offenders committing or attempting to commit a felony. And the felony involved is endangering children. Do you understand the nature of this offense? It is a felony of the first degree punishable by a maximum prison sentence of 11 years. That carries with it a mandatory post-release control of 5 years after your prison sentence. There is a presumption in favor of prison as opposed to community control. Go ahead then, Mr. Stewart, and read count 2.
Count 2 reads, on about the 6th day of April 2015, the County of Logan aforesaid, the above named Brittany Renee Pilkington did purposely cause the death of Gavin Pilkington, date of birth June 12, 2010, in violation of the Ohio Revised Code Section 2903.02A, murder and unclassified felony.
That section 2903.02 provides that no person shall purposely cause the death of another or an unlawful termination of another's pregnancy. Do you understand the nature of that offense?
Yes.
It is an unclassified felony carrying a sentence of 15 years to life. Please read count 3, Mr. Stewart.
On about the 18th day of August 2015, the County of Logan aforesaid, the above named Brittany Renee Pilkington to purposely cause the death of Noah Pilkington, date of birth May 14th, 2015, in violation of Ohio Revised Code Section 2903.02, murder and unclassified felony.
And again, that is under section 2903.02, which provides that no person shall purposely cause the death of another or unlawful termination of another's pregnancy. Do you understand the nature of that offense?
Yes.
And that too carries with it a 15-year to life sentence. Attorneys went over with you in your petition all the rights that you are giving up, specifically by pleading guilty. There is no trial. The trial would be a jury trial, or your attorneys would have a right to jury along with the prosecutor. By pleading guilty, you're giving up this right to a speedy public jury trial. Your right at that trial to confront the witnesses against you. You have a right to subpoena witnesses who could testify in your defense. You have a right to require the state to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. At trial, you have a right to testify. You can also choose not to take the stand, in which case the prosecutor can't comment on that fact to the jury. Do you understand these rights?
Yes.
And you understand by pleading guilty to these charges, you're giving up your right to trial and all the rights associated with it.
Yes.
Counsel, are there any other terms or conditions of this plea that we have not discussed to date?
No,
These offenses are not, counts 2 and 3 are not probationable. Count 1, there's a presumption in favor of prison. A plea of guilty is a complete admission of your guilt and waives the rights that we've discussed above. Mr. Stewart and Mr. Caceres, will you give a statement of facts as to what the state's evidence would be as to these 3 charges? Let's do them one at a time.
Okay, we have a brief statement of facts prepared by both parties. Count 1, the parties agree that in the early morning hours of July 22nd, 2014, at 868 East Sandusky Avenue, apartment 215, Belfountain, Ohio, Logan County, Brittany Renee Pilkington did cause the death of Niall Mason Pilkington, whose date of birth is April 11, 2014, as approximate result of Brittany Renee Pilkington committing or attempting to commit the felony offense of child endangering contrary to Revised Code 2929.22. The offense of child endangering is defined as no person who is the parent of a child under 18 years of age shall create a substantial risk to the health or safety of the child by recklessly violating a duty of care, protection, or support, and the violation resulted in serious physical harm to the child in violation of Revised Code 2903.04 ANC, involuntary manslaughter, a felony of the first degree.
Do you have any questions about the statement the prosecutor just made as to count 1?
No.
You tell me you're guilty, you're admitting the truth of that statement, understood?
Yes.
How do you plead to count 1 involuntary manslaughter?
Mm-hmm.
You want to make a statement as to count 2?
Count 2, the parties agreed that in the early morning hours of April 6, 2015, at 868 East Sandusky Avenue, apartment 215, Bell Fountain, Ohio, Logan County, Brittany Renee Pilkington would purposely cause the death of Gavin Pilkington, date of birth June 12, 2010, in violation of revised code 2903.02A, 2903.02D, and 2929.02B. This offense being murder and unclassified felony.
Did you hear the statement as to count 2?
Yes.
Do you have any questions about what the prosecutor just said as to count 2?
No.
Again, if you tell me you're guilty, you're admitting the truth of that statement. Understood?
Yes.
How do you plead to count 2?
Guilty.
Go ahead and make a statement as to count 3, Mr. Stewart.
Count 3, the parties agreed that in the early morning hours of August 18, 2015, at 868 East Sandusky Avenue, apartment 215, Bell Fountain, Ohio, Logan County, Brittany Renee Pilkington did purposely cause the death of Noah Pilkington, date of birth May 14, 2015, in violation of revised code section 2903.02A, 2903.02D, 2929.02B, this offense being murder and unclassified felony.
Did you hear the statement of the prosecutor regarding count 3?
Yes.
Do you have any questions as to count 3?
No.
Again, if you tell me that you're guilty, you're admitting the truth of that statement. Understood?
Yes.
And how do you plead then as to count 3?
Guilty.
Based upon the plea petition, based upon the defendant's answers here in open court, the court finds that these pleas are being made knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently. The court accepts the same and enters findings of guilt as to all 3 charges contained in the Bill of Information.
She was sentenced to 37 years in prison. Brittany's brain is broken, her attorney Court W. Gattadam later said in court before her sentencing. And no one ever helped her. Her attorney went on to say in court, sadly, she's safer living a better life in jail than on the outside. Dave Yost, Ohio Attorney General, had this to say about Brittany in a statement. A guilty plea cannot undo the heartless acts this woman committed against defenseless children. She does not deserve to be called mom. But locking her up will at least guarantee she won't be able to repeat this evil. Brittany and Joseph's daughter Haley is currently in foster care, and she thinks a lot about her brothers that her mom took from her. Brittany was sentenced to 37 years in prison, and her husband Joseph pled guilty to sexual imposition since he and Brittany had their first child together while she was still a minor, and while he was still her stepfather. He was ordered to pay a fine of $250, and register as a Tier 1 sexual offender for 15 years. He was sentenced to a 60-day jail sentence, which ultimately was suspended. He's currently on probation. During sentencing he addressed the court about the loss of his children. I'm adjusting as well as I possibly can to the loss of my children. I have a 4-year-old little girl, and you know I would like to take care of her as she grows up. However, Brittany's uncle, Jeff Skaggs, was happy to see Joe Pilkington behind bars. He said, I just hope the community and the prosecutors, and everybody listens to what we've been telling them. That Joe's probably been doing what he's been doing since Brittany was 8 or 9 years old. A balloon release was held in the children's honor on August 29th in 2015. Neil, Gavin and Noah were remembered as people gathered and launched balloons for 3 young lives gone too soon. When Brittany Pilkington was a young girl she suffered from lead poison which led to brain damage. Her parents divorced and her mother moved a man in who abused her throughout her teenage years. When she became pregnant from this abuse, he married her and she continued having babies. In a fit of jealousy she murdered 3 of her children. Brittany's mother failed her. When her mother found out about the abuse, she should have had Joseph Pilkington arrested. Instead of stopping the abuse, Brittany's mother allowed them to marry. Brittany is responsible for the deaths of 3 innocent children, and should spend the rest of her life behind bars. However, her mother and husband are equally responsible. She was not mentally capable of caring for children. It's an outrage that her mother allowed her to marry her abuser. May the victims in this case rest in peace. That concludes this episode. Keep your eye out for the next volume, coming soon. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.
Want to help support the channel you love, and get something in return? Simply purchase some Elizabeth's Chronicles merch. We have coffee mugs, t-shirts, sweatshirts, cozy blankets, beach towels, phone covers and more. Use the coupon code EC10OFF4U and get 10% off your order. The link to order is in the description area below this video. Thanks for helping Elizabeth's Chronicles continue to make the videos you love.